Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of a film that I did see like a little bit a while ago, like a couple weeks ago, almost a month, actually just a couple weeks ago. And I mentioned this film that I'd seen it in my mini rant on Paul Feig and Ghostbusters and Sony, and I thought, okay, why not just do a quick review of the film because I did see it, and and that film is The Boss, which is a 2016 comedy, and it's directed by Ben Falcone. It's written by Ben Falcone. I don't know if that's how you say his last name, Ben Falcon. And Melissa McCarthy, as well as Steve Mallory. It stars Melissa McCarthy as the boss, Michelle Darnell, who I guess it's a character that Melissa McCarthy created for the comedy group The Groundlings, which she was a part of early in her career. You also have Kristen Bell as Claire, Peter Dinklage as Renault, Ella Anderson as Rachel Rawlings, who is Kristen Bell's daughter, Tyler Labine as Mike Beals, who's a guy who's kind of has the hots for Claire Rawlings' character played by Kristen Bell. And Kathy Bates is also in this in a bit role as Melissa McCarthy's mentor, Ida. And then you have a few other actors and actresses. I mean, Kristen Schaal, who has a brief role as Sandy, who's a member of the Girl Scout troop who decides to team up with Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Bell on their new venture, which is to create some brownies to compete with the Girl Scouts. You also have Cecily Strong from SNL as Dana, who's Kristen Bell's boss, who's really obsessed with Melissa McCarthy's character. You have Cedric Yarborough from Reno 911 as Tito in a very racist, just forgettable, just thankless role. He's just there to be a guy who laughs at Melissa McCarthy's jokes. It's really uncomfortable. It's not even funny, and it's obviously just something he took for a paycheck. And it's honestly sad because I know he can do better than this. Michael McDonald is also in this. He's from SNL. He was also in The Heat, another film that Melissa McCarthy was in. He plays one of the guys who used to work with Melissa McCarthy when she was trying to get up in the world. You also have a cameo by T-Pain as himself and Gayle King as herself, and you also have Annie Mumulo, who plays I think that's the girl who's like the big uh the nemesis, so to speak, other than Peter Dinklage's character of Melissa McCarthy's character, Michelle Darnell. Now, this is a film that I only saw because thought it'd be something fun, maybe to watch with my family, my mom and my stepdad. We usually like to watch comedies, so I was like, okay, found this. It's a link that that's in good quality, and it was one of those links from like somewhere in Japan or China or whatever with Chinese subtitles. So I was like, okay, let's check it out. And I'm glad I didn't pay money for it because it's honestly, I really would have probably wanted my money back because honestly, I didn't think this is a very good film. I totally agree with a lot of the critics who gave us like a 20% out of 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. It was a pretty poor comedy. There wasn't much about it that was really funny. There was a couple things that made me chuckle a couple times, but that's really about it. The most memorable moment for me is when Michelle Darnell's character is showing Rachel Texas Chainsaw Massacre while she's babysitting her. The original, not the remake, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. That's the most memorable thing for me because it's like I wasn't expecting that. Other than that, it's pretty forgettable. It's cliched. That usually doesn't bother me if the movie's entertaining, but it wasn't that entertaining to me. It was just a movie that just sat there. It was like on TV. I was watching it. It was something that I was watching. Wasn't very engaged in it because there really wasn't that much to be engaged by. Uh, the plot was just basically kind of this typical oh, this person's an asshole, and then meet somebody who makes them feel better about themselves, but then pushes them away, and then eventually they get enough strength to reconcile the relationship and make things work. That's really the kind of thing that's going on with this film. And you also have the whole underdog story with Darnell's Darlings trying to go up against the big Girl Scouts and make money and whatever. And it's just, if I want to see this sort of dynamic, I'll see a rich woman try to do Girl Scouts. I'll just watch True Beverly Hills of Shelley Long, which I wasn't even the biggest fan of that movie, but I'd rather watch that over this because it's not that great, but it's 80s bad. At least it has that 80s charm, and there were things about it I definitely liked more than this. It was just stale. It was about as stale as an old batch of brownies or an old box of cookies. It's something that this whole script felt like something that was written at the time when Martha Stewart got arrested for insider trading, and it was finally found and dusted off after they found it in a box somewhere. That's what it feels like. It feels like a really old script that was just dusted off and rewritten and touched up a bit so it could be a Melissa McCarthy film. Even the studio even admitted they didn't even know who they wanted the antagonist to be. They didn't even know, was it going to be a guy or was it going to be a girl? At one point, I think it may be Oprah Winfrey or Sandra Bullock, which I actually would have liked that a little bit better than what they went with, which was the flavor of the month, Peter Dinklage, who I know people gave me crap for the video that I did when I was talking about Paul Feig, and I mentioned I wasn't impressed with Peter Dinklage. I'm not. What am I supposed to say? I'm being honest here. What am I supposed to be impressed by what I've seen? The only things I've seen him in are Pixels and this movie. So I gotta say, okay, he didn't have that much to work with, so maybe he's a better actor. But from what I've seen, I'm not that impressed. I didn't say he was the worst actor ever. I just wasn't impressed with his performances in these movies because what is there to be impressed by? He either has nothing to work with, or what he does have to work with, he doesn't do that much with. So that's what I see. That's what I saw in this movie too. Is a very weak antagonist. He was just your typical asshole narcissist antagonist who had a former relationship with the lead and things went sour, and so he decides to take out his feelings on on Melissa McCarthy's character, who he still cares for and still wants to get in bed with her, but says a relationship fell apart, and she was more successful than him, he's jealous, and all of this typical bullshit. um were there things about the movie I didn't mind? I thought Melissa McCarthy was fine. Her performance wasn't terrible. It was there. But that's pretty much how it was for anybody in this movie. No one's performance was like, oh man, that was really, really great. Nothing was like that in this movie. Kristen Bell was serviceable. Everybody, I mean, Peter Dinklage wasn't horrible in this. It's just his character I didn't care about. Didn't have much to do. Wasn't a very good kid. Wasn't very funny. It just did nothing for me. Um, there was some nice little cute chemistry between Kirsten Bell and Melissa McCarthy at times. Uh, so, uh, and there was definitely a little bit of a bond that was forming between McCarthy and Kristen Bell's daughter, Rachel, played by Elle Anderson. But that's that's not really saying much. I got some chuckles out of the scene where the Girl Scouts fight the Darnell's Darlings in a brawl, but you saw most of that in the trailer. So even that wasn't really worth that much. Yeah, so like the biggest thing is Melissa McCarthy shows a little girl Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's like the biggest gag for me and the one thing that made me laugh the most. The rest were very uncomfortable jokes that should have been cut off. It just felt like it reminded me of Sisters, and I hated that movie. I didn't do a review of that, and for good reason, because it wasn't much of a film. But if you want me to do a rant on it, a review, let me know in the comments down below. Do you want to hear my belated thoughts on Sisters? because I wouldn't mind doing it because I have a lot to say about that movie. Um, yeah, because that movie was awful, and that was just like this. It was just a film that it was poor. You had some potential, but not really. I mean, at Sisters, I thought it had more potential than this. Because this is just a stale concept. I didn't care. We've been there, done that type thing. And it didn't help that it wasn't funny. It wasn't very funny. Like I said, jokes just like Sisters that were felt like bad improv jokes, where the director didn't have the balls to say, "Hey, this doesn't work. Cut it off or cut it out." And stuff like where Melissa McCarthy has these teeth whitening things in that like make her jaws go like this, and this just they keep this going for an uncomfortable amount of time that never starts to get funny. I understand what they're doing. Let's stretch out one joke so long to the point that just because it's going on so long that it ends up becoming funny. You know, like the stuff in Family Guy where he hurts his knee and he's like, ah, ah, ah. I understand what they're going for, but it doesn't work here. It's just a bunch of pretty much, and that's it. It's really, it just goes on forever. And most of the funny jokes you already saw in the trailer. So there you go. I mean, there's really not much to this movie. That's why it's just not really much of a review. What am I going to say about this film? That's why I didn't really do a review right after I saw it because I'm like, what can I really say about The Boss? It's a pretty shitty comedy. I hate comedies like this that aren't funny. I mean, and that's the thing. What's funny to one person is not funny to another, and what's not funny to somebody would be funny to somebody else. So it's all subjective. But if you want my thoughts, this is a really terrible, unfunny comedy and it didn't have any pizzazz. It didn't have a lot of life. It felt very flat. It didn't have very much dynamic to it. It looked and felt like a TV movie. I'm stunned that this movie cost as much as it did to make. I'm stunned it cost $29 million to make. It looked like it cost five. This looked like something you'd see in the Lifetime channel. It really did. It just felt like a very half-assed, rushed Melissa McCarthy film. So we can get some money off of Melissa McCarthy. And it worked. The film made $73.1 million on a $29 million budget. So it wasn't a huge hit, but it did make a profit. It's just a cheap, lazy Melissa McCarthy vehicle. You could have swapped Melissa McCarthy out for Adam Sandler, and you'd have the same lame, just forgettable vehicle that you've seen Sandler in for years. You get the same thing. It was just a very boring, forgettable, unfunny movie. And I hate comedies like this that just drag on and on, or either predictable and cliche. And if they are predictable and cliche, they're also not funny. So it's like a triple threat, and it just does not the good kind. It's yeah. Plot wasn't very interesting, wasn't very engaging. Every beat, it seemed every note of the film I could see coming a mile away. It just made for a very just just a very unimpressive, very boring experience because you're just sitting there waiting for a laugh that never come, and you're left with just nothing but a pile of just generic mush. Movie might as well be Spam, really. It's that generic and forgettable and bland. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about The Boss except it should get fired because it failed to make me laugh. It failed to make me feel much. I guess I'll mention Tyler Labine's character. I didn't mind him. I thought he was okay. I thought the relationship between him and Kristen Bell was kind of nice to see because it kind of just he wasn't your typical sort of good-looking guy. He was just kind of like a normal guy who had the hots for her, and somehow things ended up working out. I like that. Okay, that's one aspect of the film I actually did like. I like the little bits and pieces when they used some old school music and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reference. There's that. And a couple times Melissa McCarthy made me chuckle because I think she's definitely a genuinely talented comedian. But other than that, there's not much to say about this movie. I didn't give a shit about Peter Dinklage's character. I didn't care about his plan. I didn't care about the whole Michelle Darnell. Oh, she's a poor orphan. Now she's like an ass, and then she gets arrested, loses her money, and now she wants to get things back together. And she tries to work with Kristen Bell. Kristen Bell is a former coworker of her, gives her a place to live. It looks like she's changing her character, but no, of course she doesn't. And then it's this flip flop stuff, and then eventually she apologizes and says, "Oh, I'm sorry for being an ass." And then they kiss and make up. And then there's a stupid climax where they need to steal something, steal a contract out of Peter Dinklage's high-rise building, and you have this really just silly shit with Peter Dinklage using a sword, samurai sword, trying to fight Melissa McCarthy, and it goes nowhere. And really, yeah, that's kind of the film. It goes nowhere. It's just a very forgettable movie. It should have been just released direct to video instead of in theaters. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about the bots. I really don't know what else to say. Except it's false. It's full of shit. It's got full of shit syndrome because it's definitely full of shit. It's a shitty comedy. It's just not very good, and it's definitely a film I'll never watch again. Anyway, I don't know what to say except for rated 5 stars, maybe a star for some moments that made me chuckle, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reference. That's about it. Other than that, it's a really poor, pathetic comedy. But if anyone out there liked it, that's fine with me. But I thought Tammy was a lot better than this, and that's a film that got a lot of shit, and it's a time waster for me because that at least had Susan Sarandon, and she was great, and I liked the band, the repertoire that she and I like the witty repertoire that she had with Melissa McCarthy, and I thought they had good chemistry, and they were likable characters. I mean, just Melissa McCarthy wasn't a very likable character in this, and Kristen Bell was okay, but she was kind of too plain for my tastes, and it just wasn't a very yeah, it was a very plain movie, like bland oatmeal. Anyway, thank you for watching. I've already gone on longer than I probably should have in this review. And as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.